The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show for the preseason, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up.
Talking a little bit of Chargers versus New Orleans Saints preseason week 2 post-game reaction. Now, first off, we want reaction from the director. Fresh out of the car crash of this game, director stumbles out of the vehicle that was SoFi Stadium and says to himself, gross. Easton Stick, why? I think that's first. The big thing I kind of wanted to talk about was Easton Stick. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to, let's go ahead and share the screen real quick here, actually. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and give you guys the entire screen. And we're going to share a little bit in terms of statage from what we saw in this game. Real quick here. There we go. I just got a bunch of you guys following me on Bleacher Report. Thank you for that. Now, in terms of statage, if you were to take a look at Easton Stick, you'd have said, hey, man, he had a pretty good day. Other than the interceptions, of course. 21 for 41, 233 yards. And you cannot forget the rushing yards as well. 63 rushing yards. My God, you're nearly, 300 total yards this week. That's pretty cool. That's pretty sick. Yo, to everybody in the chat. Hello. That's a lot of yardage. Despite that, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, you would have liked to see that cleaned up. 5 sacks, which I think some of these might have been self-inflicted wounds, if I'm being honest with you guys. I think that Easton Stick might have put himself in a situation or two where he was welcoming those sacks. He says, hey, my name is Easton Stick. I'm QB2 of the Chargers, and I would like to be sacked this play. Thank you very much. One of the big things I kind of pointed out during the live stream, too, with Easton Stick, number one, the absence of some of the decision-making that we saw from last week, right? It feels like Easton Stick last week, he was on fire. He was confident, right? He was finding his weapons with ease. And it feels like he was very selective as to what he wanted to do this game. We saw a lot of opportunities underneath the free yardage. What do they say all the time? Take what the defense gives you, especially when it comes to quarterbacks where, let's say, the offense isn't completely designed around them. Take what the defense is going to give you. Don't get too greedy. We saw a bit of greed from the Easton Stick this week. I saw plenty of opportunities, especially in terms of speedsters. Guys like, we saw Elijah Dotson drop a couple. We'll get to him in just a second. But we did see Darius Davis, who had a pretty solid day today, open underneath with no opportunity to grab a target or two extra because Easton was looking for the man further downfield. And to be fair, this is the preseason, right? And the Chargers and Kellen Moore and the coaches, they're probably saying, hey, Easton, we want to be the team that attacks the sideline this year, right? We want to be that team that controls that part of the field. I want you to look there first, right? That's going to be your first read. Heck, it can be your second read. Get it in there, right? We want to see what works, what we can do to adjust that part of our game. And if that was the case, then Easton, you did great. Not though. We got to work on that reaction time a little bit. I feel like there was a lot of indecisiveness on whether or not he should check down, whether he should take off. A lot of the times, those yardage on the ground, it felt like he had missed his window for a lot of his reads in that progression, right? It feels like, I had him, but he's covered now. Or I had him, but the window is closed. The only thing I got left is to take off. And I saw plenty of opportunities for that. So Easton Stick, not the best week this week in terms of what we saw in week 1 versus week 2. Week 1, I was like, hey, we got a backup quarterback. We're all good. Week 2, I'm like, Easton. We might. I don't think it puts into question whether or not he gets cut. I think the Chargers like rostering 3 quarterbacks. They extended him. I don't know how much money they would save, how much dead cap they would take on. Either way, those questions get answered with today's performance. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the chat here for a moment. What are you guys saying out here? Chargers 24 says, I think Max, I think he was a loser because he needs more playing time during this time. So you guys talk about Max Duggan, right? Interestingly enough, we did not see any Max Duggan tonight. For whatever reason, it was something the coaches decided. I feel like there's a possibility after seeing Easton Stick play the entirety of week 2 versus the Saints that we're going to see maybe Duggan play the entirety of week 3 versus, I think it's the Niners next week. And if that's the case, we should have plenty of tape by both quarterbacks in every possible situation to evaluate what the Chargers want to do in the offseason. That might be part of their strategy there. Who knows if we see Justin Herbert next week. But yeah, Max Duggan, a lot of us were kind of calling for his name after the second or third turnover by Easton Stick. Of course, you had the fumble, you got the interceptions. It wasn't the best night out there. Rockin says Donald Parham dropped an easy catch for a walk-in touchdown as well. Yeah, we're gonna have to take a look at these mitts, man. The jugs machine's gonna be full. It's gonna have a nice and long queue, a wait line with him and Donald Parham and Dotson. Certainly had a couple opportunities to catch and run over the middle from the running back position. There are things that the Chargers need to do in terms of their mitts. Now, in terms of mitts, let's go to one winner. Let's move on to another winner. I think a winner tonight. If you want to take a look, maybe not the best on the stat sheet, but he wasn't in the game as long as these other guys. Quentin Johnson, right after last week's performance, he did put up a touchdown, but a lot of Chargers fans may be a little worried about his ability to catch. 3 for 37 yards. I don't think any drops this week, right? I don't think if there was, I don't think there was on him. He looked great. Nice bounce back week for Quentin Johnson, who came up with a couple of catches through contact, which was certainly a really good sign to see if you're a Chargers fan. Last week, little bit sketchy. We're hoping to see more in terms of his ability to catch with his hands. This week, I think it was just right after I started talking about it too in the live stream. He comes down with a beautiful catch over the middle. It looked like a post, and he had to hang on to that thing through contact. Used his hands. Very, very nice display from Quentin Johnson. I'm going to say that's a winner. So the first loser of today's video certainly is going to be Easton Stick. A winner today, because I think there's a bit of a redemption narrative behind his name this week, was Quentin Johnson. Didn't need the touchdown to prove it, but he certainly did go out there and say, hey, I am capable of catching with my hands, and I am capable of getting open, and I am capable of coming down through contact and first down, all that kind of stuff. So Quentin Johnston, nice bounce back game for him. Let's move on to the next loser. Now, it's kind of, I'm going to say I'm a little in between on this one. For one, Elijah Dotson, last week, he looked great, right? He was probably the most impressive player out there. Him and we'll say Darius Davis last week were absolutely fantastic. This week, Elijah Dotson, a lot of us got excited when we saw 42 enter the field. Now, the Chargers got a couple 42s now, one on offense, one defense. The offensive Dotson on 42 walked out there, and he had a couple of really nice runs to start off the night, right? We're like, oh, my God, here he is. He's, blasting through contact. He's decisive. He's quick. Those quick, cuts are getting to the outside like we remembered, but it wasn't quite as efficient. And the reason I'm kind of going to put Dotson in the loser category today is because the final drive that could have been the narrative of this game, Chargers go out there, they put together a 2-minute offense. They score. I think a lot of that has to do with Elijah Dotson. Now, sure, you can share the blame with Easton Stick. He kind of got us in the situation, but Dotson had a couple of prime opportunities to get a Chargers first down, and then even some. There was a lot of space in front of him that just couldn't be handled. And, of course, the reason I'm putting him in this category is because he needs to show consistent, eye-popping plays in order to make this roster. The Chargers already have 3 running backs, Eckler, Kelly, Spiller. In order to make this team, he's going to need to be damn near perfect every single game, and this display was definitely not that. If anything, it kind of put a light on the ugliness of his inability to catch. 2 catches thrown, I would say, pretty nice, passes from Easton Stick at that. Both of them dropped. That's something that's not going to help his case for the 53. Now let's move on to another winner, right? Dotson's a Brandon Oliver type back. Yeah, I can see that. Let's move on to another winner here. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball for the Chargers. Can I find his name in here for a moment? You guys let me know if you see it, but it's going to be Dan Henley. Okay, actually, he was at the top right here. He led the team in tackles. He got a half a sack on there. He had a really nice day. Dan Henley, there was one play where I feel like Henley was like, that was pretty bad. And then I rewatched it, and I was like, that actually wasn't on Henley. That was just a great play by the running back of the Saints, Kendra Miller. You guys remember that wheel route that he led up the first down for setting up a touchdown for the Saints? I'm not going to put that one on Henley. I'm going to put that one on Kendra Miller making just an absolutely star-studded play that should make every Saints fan super excited about what they have in that young rookie, okay? As for Dan Henley throughout the entirety of the rest of the game, though, this guy was kind of all over the place in terms of sideline to sideline speed, getting involved in whatever he could in terms of stopping big plays in their tracks. It really felt good to have a guy out there that kind of was reminiscent of a Kenneth Murray, but a little bit more reliable in coverage, which is something that the Chargers were definitely looking for from Kenneth Murray to begin with. Felt good. It felt like Kenneth Murray, when he's on the field, the the chances of a big play breaking away under his watch, the Rangers' watch, were a lot less likely. And I think we did see a nice little boost from last week as well. He, of course, was able to get involved in a couple of times last week, but this week I think he was a difference maker. So big ups to Dan Henley. I liked him quite a bit. Let's go ahead and grab a couple of comments here from the chat over here. All right. So Am says, like the offensive play calling during the second to last possession. I'll actually add to that saying there's a couple of plays scattered throughout both both halves that to me said the play calling is actually not too bad, right? I see some options. That are being ignored by the quarterback, unfortunately. A lot of forcing of the football to the sideline, like we mentioned before, and a lot of just not hitting that first read underneath for the obvious yards. That to me tells me that where last season's I would have been like that play calling was putrid, why are we being so conservative? This week was more like, I think the plays were there. The execution was extremely sloppy, sometimes by the receivers, most of the time by the quarterback. But there were times too throughout the game where the play calling looked exceptionally good, which tells me, okay, I don't know how much of this I put on Kellen Moore yet. Trust me, when I feel that way, we will definitely make sure he's held accountable, especially after everything we went through with Joe Lombardi. But this week, I don't know how much I put on Kellen. I think a lot of it had to do with the quarterback play, right? Yeah, play calling was great, just poor execution. I agree, Nightwave. I agree. Let's actually move on to another winner of this game. We're going to move a little bit quicker here, too. The next winner I kind of want to talk about is Tuli Tuipulotu. He'll be all the way down here. Now, on the stat sheet, what is this? This is the sack, right? He did not get a sack. He got a tackle for a loss. That's correct. He had a beautiful play, tackle for loss on the running back at some point. But what I love from Tuli this game was his constant presence, right? When you're asking an edge player, especially one that's not going to be present throughout the, a lot of the game, and that's going to be true in the regular season as well. He's going to rotate in for the most part with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. To see him be just like Dan Henley, present quite a bit, makes me feel very good, right? And to make a difference in a play like that, tackle for loss, makes me feel very good. I saw things that made me feel better about him versus the run. The Chargers certainly need to improve that stat from last season. Let's get better versus the run. I saw that from Tuli. I saw the constant pressure from Tuli. There was one play in particular, I think just one play where I saw Tuli maybe a little bit out of position, letting a pretty significant run up the middle kind of under his watch. Other than that, I felt very good about Tuli Tuipulotu. Okay. And to kind of wrap up, not even wrap up, but to kind of move into another winner, because I do think there was a lot more winners in this game than Chargers fans realize, was this man right here, JT Woods. Now, you blink, you missed it, right? In a lot of situations, I think JT Woods and Dean Leonard, both these guys kind of in tandem, kind of knocked my socks off this week. They both looked really, really good. And this is something that if you're a Chargers fan, you need to be very excited about, man. Because the fact of the matter is, I think, and I've been harping about this a while, I think JT Wood's going to get way more playtime than a lot of us think in that Derwin relief role. And again, quick recap, Derwin James moves around, right? He's our safety up there. But when he's in the box, when he's, rushing the passer from the X position, when he's in the slot or the star position, someone still needs to be up there for most of that time. And this season, I think it's going to be JT Woods. And seasons past, it was Lohi Gilman. He's now moved to free safety. JT Woods, I think, is going to be that guy. And I've seen struggle and heard struggle about JT Woods in camp a little bit, some growth, yes. But to see it translate in a live football game environment in the preseason, see him actually out there making a difference, getting close to generating turnovers, very close, but his positioning's been great. His ability to break up passes has been great. There was one huge play over the middle to 87 of the Saints that was solely on JT Woods, and he executed. He did his job. He broke up that pass. Makes me feel good. And I feel like his tackling ability has been getting a lot better. That's one big thing that you have to mark against him in years past. That's been looking a lot better. Him and Dean Leonard just kind of patrolled that right side of the field very efficiently this week. And so I'm going to say winner for both of those guys. Didn't come up with the interception, but my goodness, were they present? I think they're turning into quite the little duo, the tandem. Another loser I kind of want to talk about is the other DB this week, though. And it could have started the beginning of the end, and that's Jasir Taylor. There he is right here. Of course, you guys remember that last play of the first half where he gives up that huge pass to, was it 88? I don't remember who came down with it for the Saints. Either way, there was seconds left on the clock, and it resulted in the Saints re-grabbing the lead right before going into the tunnel, and it was all on Jasir Taylor. He just couldn't get his head around. There was a couple of different plays this week where I feel like Jasir Taylor looked a little bit lost. I still have hope, right, that he's going to turn it around. We've seen a lot, like almost in contrast from JT Woods. We've seen a lot of great stuff at camp from Jasir Taylor. Maybe not so much from JT Woods. Then when it comes to the game, JT Woods is looking pretty good, and Jasir Taylor is struggling to catch up. We need to see that translate into, again, a live game environment for Jasir Taylor. So I will put him a little bit in the loser column for today. Another winner I do want to point out, though, is Scott Matlock. Hey, who are the believers out there for 99, baby? I think Scott Matlock had a game today. There was, I think, the biggest game that I loved, or the biggest play that I loved from Matlock was the wide receiver screen. I think it was going to Merriweather, right? And it was set up beautifully. I think it was Hayner, the quarterback of the Saints, that hit him in stride. It was beautiful. I saw the running back start to run around the corner. And I was like, man, the only guy on his heels is that defensive lineman, the DT, the big old DT out there. He looked like a giant blueberry chasing that little speedy running back. I was like, there's no way in heck that's going to happen. He's going to catch him. Lo and behold, there's Matlock. Right on the toes, right on the heels of Merriweather, brings him down, blows up the screen, and I think saves that drive for the Chargers defensively. That, to me, spoke a couple of different things. One, Scott Matlock, he's been very good versus the run. He's been a present pass rush defensive lineman in the middle. I like his game there, but the wheels on that big guy really impressed me, and that's something you don't see every day. That guy's huge. He's huge. Go back and watch that play if you find the time. He blew up that screen like he was a linebacker out there. And instead of that, it's just big lineman in the middle. Big lineman in the middle. All right. We got to find another loser out here, though, man. It's tough to say losers. I think another loser I kind of have to point out here is going to be John Hightower. His debut game, I get it. All right. He hasn't had the same sort of game speed as, Davis, or getting up to speed in a live game environment like Davis or anything like that. But he was just kind of blanketed, I feel like, this entire game. It feels like no matter what Easton Stick was doing, which felt like a lot of the times was forcing passes in the direction of John Hightower just couldn't catch a break. And I have to determine, you guys have to determine, is it on Hightower or was it on the defense of the Saints, which was exceptional tonight? I think the Saints played really good defense tonight. I don't know. But Hightower, just like we were talking about with Elijah Dotson and these other guys, it's going to be an uphill battle to get onto this, starting 53. It's going to be a tough thing to do. And you're going to need these preseason games. You're going to need to shine in these preseason games. I think John Hightower kind of underwhelmed today. And I think it could be a combination of just bad luck, good coverage, bad quarterback play. Either way, he's going to need to bounce back next week. Let's go ahead and hit the chat here real quick. Kia says, shout out to Tully. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He says the first team offense, my opinion, should get 1 or 2 possessions next game. I would agree with that, too. I think that just get in the game speed. Just get in the game speed. Her says, I agree, Tony. No, yeah. We're screwed if Herbert gets hurt. There's a lot. But I think the last thing I'll mention here from the comments real quick is from Tony. He says, don't forget CJ Okoye as a presence. Okoye looked really good, too. I think I remember one play he blew up over the middle. A running play trying to go through the middle. I think he stopped that within like 2 yards. Very, very nice. Okoye, a little bit like Scott Matlock, he's also very deceptive in his speed and agility, right? His ability to move on that line. That's something I think the Chargers need to consider. And just like these other guys, it's going to be a tough battle. A little bit easier because there are some injury concerns on that defensive line, but certainly did stand out again. Another winner I want to throw out there today is definitely going to be this man, Darius Davis. Again, you'll see this stat line and think to yourself, director, what do you say? Like 3 receptions for 3 yards, or I should say 3 receptions for 24 yards. How is that a huge win? Well, again, we saw him. Okay, first off, I want to get out of the way. He did have that muffed punt, which was very scary. Unfortunately for him, it bounced off his foot, goes out of bounds. Chargers still have decent field position, right? He's got to clean that up. And it's going to be something that we kind of knew coming in from TCU, that he did have a couple of, muff punts, and that he's going to have to figure out, some of them costing him games. That's going to be a concern. However, Darius Davis, the receiver, looked exceptional today. I'm going to say very exceptional. And it's something that it's hard for me to try and reel in terms of my excitement as a fan. because I am seeing a little bit of history repeating itself right now, but this time for the Chargers. I am seeing and remembering the Kansas City Chiefs drafting a young man by the name of Tyreek Hill, using him as a punt returner, a return specialist, seeing a bit of upside of him as a receiver, and then working him in over the course of his first season to become one of the most lethal and deadly speedsters in the NFL. It's impossible. And again, some people will say I'm an optimist. I don't care. I'm seeing a lot of that same stuff. And that's what I see in these 3 receptions. Again, it's not much, but what he did with those receptions speak volumes. And that's exactly what I saw last week too. He gets open underneath. He takes off for additional yardage because of that speed. He's catching through contact. He did it again today, over the middle. I think it set up the Chargers for a touchdown. The Easton Stick QB sneak, it set him up for that. And that he had to come down with that through contact, right? He's constantly getting open. He's constantly getting extra yardage. Darius Davis is really impressing me to a point where I'm like, if you're the coaches, are we considering maybe a little bit more in terms of snappage for Darius Davis in the regular season? I don't know. Maybe. I think it's definitely a very, very nice thing to see if you're a Chargers fan. We have a speedster. And the thing I say all the time, and I'm actually going to come back here for this because I think this is important. I want to look you guys in the eye when I say this, because I've been saying this for very many years on my channel, especially when Chargers fans really have been harping about getting some speed on this team, drafting guys that are known for their speed, late round, steals, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest thing I've always said in evaluating these guys and looking at their tape and seeing what they'd be a good fit with the Chargers is that these players need to be more than just speed. We've seen players with just speed fizzle out so quickly in their NFL careers, right? They have the hotness because they're the fastest guy in the draft, or they have the hotness because they're a burner on the outside. You pair them up with a good quarterback, there's, the sky's the limit. They got to be able to do more. The best wide receivers, the best speedsters in NFL history, the best speedsters in the NFL today are the ones that can also catch, the ones that can also get open, the ones that can also, run their routes as crisp as the next guy. And everything I've seen from Davis so far, even though it's just the preseason, has pushed my compass in that direction. Like, yeah, he's not just a speedster. At the top of the season, I would have said, yeah, you could maybe throw him on a go route, see what happens. Or throw him on a streak, see what happens. Hit him on the drag, see if he can make some yards after the catch, whatever. But now I'm thinking, maybe he's ready for some more complex work. We've seen some clips from Twitter, etc. Maybe he's learning from, Keenan Allen. Of him, by the way, burning some of these Saints defenders, especially over the middle. Maybe he's learning a thing or two from Keenan Allen. And I think the prospect, I should say, my ceiling on him has definitely gotten a lot higher. It's definitely feeling really good about that. All right, to help kind of wrap this up, is there any other names on here that kind of stick out to you guys? I'm going to go hit the chat here for a second. I think for the most part, defense as a whole, I felt pretty good about it. A couple of boneheaded plays here and there, but Andrew Farmer looked good. Defensive line, once again, did stand out as a pretty good unit. Defensive backs looked a lot better this week. Defense as a whole, I was feeling a lot better about. The offense struggled, but I think mainly to the tune of a struggling quarterback in Easton Stick. Let's see what you guys say here today in the comments. Rockin says Keelan Doss played really well today. He did. Keelan Doss was pretty nice. Am says saw improvement from Sorrell. The offensive line, that's a good point there too. A bit of an improvement, but it was a bit shaky, especially in the second half again. Chargers need to figure out, I think, their swing tackles still. Loved hearing about Koyes during the commentary. Yeah, definitely fun. Elijah Dotson has some stuff to clean up. But hey, week 3 of the preseason coming up here next week. Will the starters start? Will they not? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I don't think they will. But Chargers narratives to follow. Easton Stick, can he bounce back? Is he in danger of being overtaken by Max Duggan, especially if Duggan gets a full game next week? Can Elijah Dotson overcome the drops, overcome the struggle of week 2 to maybe even make a case for the roster? He could be that permanent, practice squad guy like we've seen with Brad Will in years past. Can he break out of that mold with a very good game next week? As for Darius Davis, guys, I'm going to plant my flag and say if this guy can go out there and do more of this, maybe at the tune of a bit of more yardage, right? Maybe 5 receptions, right? Give this kid 6 targets next week and see what happens. If he can continue impressing, I have to imagine the Chargers want to use him more in the regular season. So we're going to wait and look at his narrative as we continue. The backups, Josh Kelly, what was the other guy? Spiller. Those guys struggled a little bit. Maybe we see a bit more next week. We need to see more from Donald Parham. And then, of course, the defense, I think they can carry that momentum. So last week, I will say offense shined very well. This week, defense, I think, did shine despite the score. And narratives have been started in terms of, what can the Chargers carry on from next week? Well, guys, thank you, everybody, for joining me. Reaction, I'm going to say disappointed in the loss, but we learned some stuff, right? We learned that there are guys on this roster that maybe deserve an expanded role, maybe don't deserve a role at all, and maybe have a narrative carrying into the regular season that could transform them into a real difference maker for this team. Because again, I'll point it out one more time. You guys are going to think I'm crazy. Tyreek Hill started as a mid-round pick for a returner for the Chiefs, ended up being one of the more dangerous speedsters in the NFL. I want to see Darius Davis continue walking that path, man. So far, he's 2 for 2 on impressive games. Let's make it 3 next week. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Thank you for everybody joining us on this Bleacher Report post-game reaction. We will be back next week after the San Francisco 49ers game versus the Chargers to give you guys our final thoughts. I'm sure we're going to have a lot prepared in terms of what we've learned from the preseason as a whole as we get ready for kickoff just, a week and a half after that. Football season just around the corner. We're getting very excited for the actual games that start counting. It's going to be a good time. Well, thank you guys, everybody, again, for joining me on my stream, coming over here to this stream. We'll catch you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and keep doing your thing, Darius Davis. I think the league is starting to notice. There we go. Take care, everybody.